If you are looking for an SQL solution on Amazon Web Service for your backend, you will likely come across AWS RDS. AWS RDS or Amazon Relational Database Service is a fully managed service that provides SQL databases hosted by Amazon Web Service. One of the key benefits for using Amazon RDS is its highly availability scalability, the fact that it's a managed service. This means that we don't need to worry about many of the operational aspects of managing a database. Most likely, the heavy lifting is done by Amazon Web Service. With RDS, we can choose from a variety of database engines, including MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQL Server, Oracle Server, and much more. It offers flexibility and options to suit for different use cases. In this video, we'll mainly learn how we can create our own RDS instance and how we can connect the RDS instance using private endpoint from our EC2 instance. Inside your AWS console, you need to search for RDS. This is the option Aurora and RDS. Here you need to choose the nearest region according to your name. In this case, I am choosing Asia Pacific Mumbai. Here you also get some free tier for 12 months after you have created your account. Here you need to click on databases. From here you need to click on create database. Now first here you will get two options. Either we can use the standard create option or we can use the easy create option. In easy create we get very less amount of customization. If you want more customization, in that case you should always select standard create. As you can see, there are several databases that we can choose from here, like MySQL, Postgres, MariaDB, Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, or IBM DB2. Depending upon your need, you can choose any of them. And then we have the specially customizable AWS Aurora. It's either compatible with MySQL or PostgreSQL. Now, one thing I should tell you from the start that AWS Aurora is similar to MySQL and Postgres, but it's more scalable and it's a product of Amazon. So if you need original PostgreSQL or MySQL, then you should select this option. Then here comes the option of availability zone. If you want your database to be available in multiple regions, in that case, you should be enabling that. It will be helping in fault tolerance. If one database server goes down, in that case, it will be using the other database server from other region. Here you can pick the version what you need. You can either choose the latest version or some other version that is recommended. Now the templates. In most of the cases, you'll be either choosing free tier or the dev and test tier. When you choose the free tier, you will be only getting a single DB instance. Means it will not be available in multiple availability zone because it does not allow in free tier. You'll be only having one primary instance that will be used for read and write. So in this case, we are going to be creating a free tier instance only. So we can just disable this multi-AZ cluster because it's not allowed. If we create a multi-AZ cluster, then it will not fall under our free tier. So make sure to disable that. Now we can name our database MySQL RDS demo. Here we need to choose our master username. We can either use credentials from AWS Secret Manager or we can use self-managed. In this case, let's just use the auto-generated password by AWS. Since it's a free tier, we can either get T3 micro or T4G micro. So let's take T4G micro. Don't select any other instance than T4G micro because it does not fall in the free tier. You might be charged for your AWS RDS instance. So choose it carefully. Here keep the storage as GP2 because GP2 is only allowed up to 20 GB in free tier. If you increase the storage, like make it 30 GB, then your free tier might be cancelled you will be billed, and do not select any other storage type because those storage are really expensive and you will be charged upon the duration that you are using. So let's just keep it to 20 GB as default for our free tier, and next we don't need any additional storage. But if you set this, if someday you think that your storage need to be increased, you can increase this up to your need. Then we have the connectivity option. If you are using AWS RDS and your servers are outside AWS, then you should use the option don't connect to an EC2 compute resource. If you are going to be using your server inside EC2, in that case, you should be using this option, and this option is more secure than the previous one because it will be using private network, and private networks are not publicly accessed. So if we want to connect to an EC2 instance resource, in that case, we should have an EC2 instance. So first, let's just create an EC2 instance. A very small one I will create. So let us launch an EC2 instance. For this, let's use Ubuntu and let's use instance type as T3A micro. Let's use the GPU that we have used previously and also use the security group that we have created previously. 8 GB storage is enough for us, and in advance we need to select the SSM role that we have created in our previous video, SSM access for EC2. This will allow us to connect the EC2 instance using SSM. Now we can launch our instance. So this is our EC2 instance and it's running. Let's name it as test RDS. Now we have created our instance. Now inside our create database, we can choose the EC2 instance. So here is our EC2 instance, that is test RDS that we have created. Let's make it as IPv4, and database group, let's make it automatic because we don't need to do so many setup. So public access is set to no because we are using private network. So public access is not possible, and it's most secure option to connect to database because you are only allowing the server to connect to RDS. Now for firewall, we can just use the previous firewall that we have created, and let's use the certificate authority as default. And for database port, let's keep it as 3306, no problem in that. For now, let's just use password authentication, and we don't need database monitoring inside because it has separate pricing. If you think that you need database inside, in that case, you should enable this. Otherwise, it's not required to enable. And here it says that RDS free tier is available for 12 months. Each calendar month, it will allow free tier 720 hours of RDS, DBT2 micro or DBT3 micro or DBT4G micro, 20 GB of general purpose SSD and 20 GB of automated backup. So it's also allowed backup. Here we have the backup option. It allows only 20 GB of backup. So what it will do, like it will be doing automatic system backup in every day. And this is AWS does system backup. It means that if your database size is 20 GB, AWS will do a system backup and full 20 GB. It is not going to do the only database part backup. Like we can do it using SQL dump. Now backup has some separate billing because you are using some storage. If you want, you can also enable deletion protection. This will help your instance from getting deleted if somebody tries to delete it by mistake. Let's create our database. It will take some time to create, as it's giving some option that we can use either the cache service to increase faster read, or we can use an AWS proxy that will help us scaling pool connections. So if we use RDS proxy, it will allow us to scale our connection and the pool connections to higher limit, and it also add as a instance failover. If our primary instance fails due to some reason, in that case the proxy comes very effective. And also the elastic cache is mainly for cache service that will help us faster read. Now all this have separate pricing, so if you create either elastic cluster or proxy, then it will cost you more. So for now we are not doing because we want to stay in free tier. So let's close it. Now let's wait for some time until our instance gets created. Now our RDS instance is created and here the status is showing as available. It means that we are ready to connect our RDS instance with our EC2 instance. If you have enabled public endpoint for RDS instance, then in this case, you will be allowed to connect with your local machine. For now, since we have selected password authentication, here you can see we are getting a notification that here is our connection details. Click here to view your connection details. And this is the username and the password. Make sure to copy this password. Otherwise, you will be requiring to reset the password if you forget to copy this password. So just you can use your notepad to copy and store the password somewhere safe. In this case, I'm storing it on notepad. In your case, you can store it anywhere, but store it somewhere secure because this is the master password. You can do all the changes in your database with this account. Now, since we have not enabled publicly accessible endpoint, so here it's showing no, and we have linked our EC2 instance with this RDS instance. Here it has automatically created the security group that will provide us private connection between our EC2 instance and our RDS instance. So this was our EC2 instance. This is the instance that we recently created. And now let's try to connect to this EC2 instance. Let's use SSM because we have already provided the IAM permission for connecting using SSM. Now, before connecting to this instance, we need to have MySQL client installed in this machine. If we don't have that, then we cannot connect to our RDS instance. First thing that you need to do after you launch the instance, you need to update your system. Let's become the root user. Now here, first we need to update our system. For this we'll use sudo apt update and apt upgrade. Just wait until this complete. Now our system has been upgraded. Now we can install SQL client. Since our database engine was MySQL, for that we'll be requiring MySQL client to connect with that database engine. If you have different versions of database engine selected in RDS, then you need to use different clients for connecting your RDS instance. If you use Postgres, then you will be using PSQL client. Since we are in root, we don't need to give sudo, but if you want, you can just give sudo apt install MySQL client. It will take around 61 MB of space. Click on yes. Let's use MySQL. So now we have installed MySQL because this command is running. Let's type MySQL -h. Here we need to provide the host. So our host was this endpoint. Let's paste it. Now we need to provide the port. So port will be default 3306. And then we need to define the user. And then we need to define the username. That will be you. And it was admin in our case. And then password. We don't need to type it. Here we need to paste the password. Just copy the password and paste it here. Now we are connected to SQL instance. So this is our RDS instance that we are connecting using MySQL client and EC2. Like we can type anything like show tables, show databases, and then we can just use anything, show tables, like this. Since we are the admin of the database, we can modify anything. We can create user in MySQL, or we can create a table according to our needs. So this is how you connect with your database. If you make the database backup Here you can see the database backup is on. So it will start creating automated system backups. Since our database size was 20 GB, so it will be doing 20 GB's backup daily, and backup will be stored for 1 day. After that, it will be deleted. If you want, you can also take snapshot of your database. Now, one thing you should remember that these backups are system backup. If you want to recover the data, in that case, you need to create another new MySQL database and then you can restore that data, because this is a problem. You don't get the backup for specific table or specific database. If you need backups for specific table or database, in that case, you should be using the MySQL dump option. Now, this is how you can use your RDS database. It totally depends upon you how you are going to be using, how you are going to write the tables, and how you are going to utilize the database. Now we have learned how we can connect with our RDS instance from our EC2 instance. If you want, you can make this as publicly accessed. The method will be very similar. In your local machine, you should be having MySQL client to connect your RDS instance using the public network. To make the database as public, you need to use the modify option. In case if you lost the master database password, you need to click on modify, and here you will get the auto generate password option, or you can specify the new password and confirm it. In this case, if you change the database class, in that case it will start costing you money because you're exceeding the free tier. And if you think that you need multi-agent deployment, in that case you can just create another standby instance that will help you. And that's the thing. Just we can cancel it for now. Now we have done our job. If we click on the actions option, we can either take a snapshot. This is the full database snapshot, or we can connect to a proxy or an elastic cluster, or we can restore to some point in time. But in this case, if you really want to restore, it's better that you create another instance if this is your production instance. If this is your production instance, then do not restore here. Instead, you need to create another instance, restore the database data, and from that place, the data that you need, just copy it and paste it in your actual database. So that will be more better. And also you can convert it to multi-availability zone. And we can also create read replica. It will mainly create another instance where it will be only used as the reader endpoint, or we can convert it to Aurora replica, similar to the previous read replica. Now it's time to delete the database, because if we are not using this database, then it's not required to turn on, because after 12 months, or if you have crossed the free tier limit, then it will start costing you. And the cost is around $20 to $30. So it's very high in price, but it's very scalable. So after you have done the job, you need to delete the database. Just click on delete me, and all your data will be deleted, and also the backups will be deleted. If you want, you can just copy the backups to somewhere in S3 so that you can later restore the data. If you delete the instance once, your backups also get deleted. So let's just delete it. Now our instance will get deleted, and now we also don't need this EC2 instance. We can delete this instance because it will be also costing us. So now we have some idea about how RDS instance work and how we can connect our EC2 instance with RDS.